And welcome back. It's Tuesday night. It's time for yet another social distance learning. Tonight, we have a special episode, sort of revisiting some of our earlier roots where we talked about various and sundry competitions. But over the last 2 weeks, Scott Richardson has done takedowns and rebuild or re-put togethers of rifles that are very popular in the Appleseed events, the Ruger 1022 and a Marlin Model 60. Obviously, you can shoot Appleseed with larger calibers, but those 222s are they're pretty accurate and they're pretty fun. And Scott showed us how to do the various and sundry maintenance on them. So tonight we're going to talk about what it means to go to Appleseed. And we have both Scott Richardson, the bench doctor, and Mike Ross, otherwise known as Defender of the Realm. And that's an inside joke, and we're not going to explain it right now. Who has gone to a number of Appleseeds and managed to get himself, I believe, what is it called? The Distinguished Rifleman Badge?
Yes.
Yeah, really something of an achievement when you're doing these precision shooting events. And as I understand them, I've never personally done one. They're pretty rigorous and pretty exhausting, but you learn a whole lot. So tonight we're going to talk about what an Appleseed event is and what you need to do to get ready for one, and all of the things that you need to have in order to go and be successful. You may or may not end up coming home with one of those badges that Mike's got, but somebody like Mike will be able to help you figure out how to get closer to it. If you are just joining us for the first time on Zoom, all of the questions are going to be answered, or we're going to try to answer all the questions that you ask via the chat mechanism on Zoom. So registering for these events is important. That way you can come participate and ask your questions live. We've got a team of volunteers, Lonnie and Kyle and Paul and Danielle, and I think that's it. Did I miss anybody? Yeah, I think that's it. They're going to be looking at the chat and seeing if you have questions and adding them to a list. So be patient. If you ask a question, it gets added to a list. And then somebody will ask it when it's sort of convenient or there's a lull in the conversation, or we don't want to just simply interrupt Mike while he's talking. If you are watching us on Twitch, Twitter, or Facebook, we'll get to your questions as we can. These sorts of events, we try to keep the questions primarily in Zoom. So that's another good reason to join us live in the Zoom chat. And otherwise, we'll comb through those questions as we get to them. And I know Scott, especially, and Mike, most times, likes to go back and look and see what everybody thought of it and answer the questions directly as well. So if we don't answer it live during the chat tonight, someone will get around to answering your question over the next day or so, give or take. Let's see. I think that's the entirety of the intro. I'm going to stop talking and turn it over to Mike and Scott. Scott, do you want to be the sort of the
sure? I'll get it.
Things.
Yeah. Well, if you aren't familiar with what an Appleseed event is, it's a 2-day event where you learn the fundamentals of marksmanship as well as some early U.S. history related to the very first days of the American Revolution. And there's, I think, a lot of misconceptions that it comes off as kind of a right-wing thing or uber patriot thing. It really doesn't. I didn't see any politics. I didn't infer anybody's politics. Either the presenters or the shooters. It was all done very well. The stories they tell you during the shoot are interesting. And it's not at all, there's no politics pushed on you, at least here in Oregon, where Mike and I shot the most recent one. I had never been to one. Mike has been to, I think, 1 or 2 prior events. And so I didn't really know what I was getting into going in, but all of my rifle skills are self-taught, and I use skills in air quotes. And I had never really learned the proper way to shoot prone, to shoot kneeling, to shoot standing, or how to use a sling. There's way more to using a sling to shoot well than I ever knew. And Mike was there along with another local member of ours, and we had a great time. Mike is a much more accomplished Appleseed shooter than I am. He shot. They have a badge that you get, a marksman's badge, if you score high enough. And then he exceeded that and scored the distinguished badge, which is actually a patch. So he's shot as well as you can shoot in Appleseed. As far as I know, I don't think there's any award higher than that. But so today, I think Mike and I are going to just talk to you, answer your questions about what the Appleseed shoot is and what it's like, and what to bring, what you don't need. And so that's kind of where we're at with this. I shot mine with a Thompson TCR 22. It's basically a clone of the Ruger 1022. And I believe Mike shot his with a 1022 with a custom stock. And I think a Boyd's stock to make the rifle fit him better. You don't need a super expensive rifle because you're only shooting out to 25 meters or 82 feet. You don't need to spend a ton of money. Your off the rack 1022 Marlin 60, any of those guns will work right away. You don't need to do anything to it, spend a bunch of money on it. You may want to upgrade to tech sights. They recommend them on the Appleseed page. If you don't use a scope, you can use a scope, or you can use the open sights. With my old eyesight, it wasn't going to work with the open sights. So I surrendered to my ego and shot it with the scope. And I believe Mike was scoped as well. And you just need a shooting mat, but you don't need to buy one. You can just bring an old piece of carpet or a piece of cardboard, just something to keep you out of the dirt. We were shooting off a concrete slab, but that may not always be the case. And somebody asked last week, and I don't know, Mike, I think they recommend you bring 500 rounds for a 2-day event, don't they?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I brought a brick of 22 ammo that I knew worked well in my gun, that my gun would cycle. Because a lot of the things that you're doing are timed. So you've got X number of minutes to shoot 10 shots. So you want to find ammo that is reliable in the gun that you're shooting, because you can deal with malfunctions, but you probably don't want to under the kind of pressure that they're putting you under. It's not extreme, but the less you have to fiddle with and worry about, the better off you're going to be, the more you can focus on the task at hand. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mike here and let him walk you through kind of the anything he wants to tell you about. He's got more experience, like I said, with this than I do.
All right. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. I have been to 3 Appleseeds, and it took me to, if you score a certain number of points on their qualification test, you get a patch, a rifleman patch. It looks like that. And it's on this qualification test, which is this here, you need to score a 210 or better. And it's out of 250 total points. And if you score a 240 or better with optic, you get a distinguished patch like that. If you score a 230 or better using iron sights, you get a distinguished patch as well. Go over safety first. Well, I guess some beginning points. So you want to go to an Appleseed, right? And it teaches basic rifle marksmanship, and it's based on the an U.S. Army training program when they used M1s. And you will need a rifle. This is a 1022. You don't need an expensive rifle. A rifle off the rack will do just fine. This one, I put a new stock on it. It's not bedded. I was asked that question, did you bed your stock? I said, no, I just attached it. So that doesn't need to be fancy. This scope is a Simmons 22 mag. It's a 4x32 scope. I won it in a raffle. I think new they cost $35, very inexpensive. Or you can go with iron sights. Tech sights are excellent. It's an aperture sight, so it's a little peep, round hole in the rear, and a post in the front. Again, that should look familiar with guys who have shot M1s. You will need a sling, which this has on it. This is just a standard GI sling. It's cotton webbing. It's about inch and a quarter wide. It has a little release clasp. And if you can see the bottom, that just slips off the rear swivel attachment. The reason is because they'll show you how to use a sling in different ways. Hasty sling and a loop sling. They teach you to use a sling standing, sitting, and or kneeling, and also shooting prone. So recommendations. So you want to go. Do you need to be an experienced shooter? No. I don't consider myself an experienced shooter. I came to shooting later in life, and I'm even less of a rifleman than I am a pistol guy. Anybody could do this, but it does pay to be prepared. So you'll get the most out of it if you know your rifle ahead of time. And you don't need to be an expert, but you need to know how it functions safely, how the safety operates, how to insert the magazine. And by the way, this action is open, the magazine is out, and it did have a chamber flag, which fell out, indicating safe condition. Okay. Also, the magazine is empty. See the red follower in there. So my first Appleseed, I got this rifle out of the store the day before the event, and that cost me in terms of fumbling with the controls, because a lot of the stuff, as Scott said, is timed, and if you're fumbling with the magazine, it takes some time away from what you're supposed to be doing. So be familiar with your rifle and have it sighted in. It's shot at 25 yards. So make sure it shoots where it's supposed to at 25 yards. Use a bench rest or a bag or something like that. Also, before the event, see what ammo it likes best. This last time I took this out and gosh, I tried 5 different kinds of ammo in this to see which it liked best, and I went with that. Now I know that these days it's kind of hard because there isn't any ammo available anywhere, let alone a variety. So you do what you have to do.
Yeah, most 22s are very ammo picky. The CCI mini mags seem to be the most consistent with most people I know. So if you can get a hold of some CCI mini mags, give them a try. They tend to be the best, at least in my experience.
Yeah, definitely. So that's all you need. A basic rifle, have it sighted in, know how to use it, have your sling, so you can learn how to use that in the course. They'll teach you all that. So just have the sling, put it on, know how it attaches and detaches, and you're good to go. And they'll teach you everything else. It doesn't need to be fancy. Some questions that come up: can you use a bolt action rifle? Yes, you can, and people have done that, and people have done well.
Yeah, I think one of our classmates shot a marksman with a bolt gun.
Yeah,
you just have to be fast.
You have to be fast, right? It's the course of operations really built around a semi-automatic because it's based on an M1, but it can be done with the bolt action. Part of the problem with the bolt is that you change your point of aim every time you cycle the bolt, and a natural point of aim is a big thing at Appleseed, establishing that. Can you use a center fire? Yes, at most Appleseeds you can. They do have some rimfire only events, but you can shoot with an AR Absolutely.
I can tell you that if you're in the bay next to the person that brought the AR, that person's not going to be your best friend. It's hard to shoot precision 22 with an AR going off right next to your head. I had this mic was on my right, and the two spaces to my left were both shooting ARs, and yeah, it wakes you up. So I would suggest if you do bring an AR and that's what you have, try to find one of the spots at the end of the line, so you are either all the way at the end left or right, and that will minimize the disruption to people around you. Just to be considerate.
That's a good excuse, Scott. I like it.
Yeah, and a lot of times they'll actually put the center fire guys down at the end of the line out of consideration. So that's kind of the gear. Have a brick of 22 that work for your rifle, and it's good for all ages, and it's good for all levels of experience.
Define brick for folks who don't know.
500 round package. Usually 22 is sold either in the little individual box of 50 or a brick of 500, which is several boxes of the little 50. Now they do bulk packs where Winchester and Federal, and they sell like a 400 round bulk pack or 5.55, 333. Doesn't matter if it runs in your gun. Bring approximately 500 rounds of it.
Yeah.
You were talking about age, Mike. Do you know what the low end age limit is?
Gosh, there were kids at the event Scott and I went to. Scott, what would you say? The youngest was maybe 8?
Yeah. There was one family with a young boy and a young girl, and I was thinking of bringing my son. He's 14, but I thought he would get bored. But those kids really enjoyed it. I truly just by their body language and smiles, I think they really had a good time.
Yeah, I would add this is a very family friendly event. Young or old, male, female, couples, families, kids. I don't know what the lower age limit is. There may be one. Check the website for that. But it's a very friendly event, and they're there to teach you how to shoot a rifle. There's no ego involved. It's what they do emphasize is safety. Every single time you touch your firearm, getting it to the line, taking it away from the line, there is never a time when they're not completely focused on safety. In fact, they have a regimen on how to make. That's one of the first things you learn, how to make your rifle safe by their standards. Okay. Should I go over some scoring and what you do, Scott, and then maybe show some of the positions and how it works?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, Mike has been through this more than I have. I can probably answer your equipment-related questions or give you my perspective, but Mike is really the one that knows the material better than I do. So okay. I would say, let's just start there.
Okay. All right. So they will supply all the paper goods at these events. And one of the things that we'll give you is something like this. This is for sighting in. These are 1/4-inch squares. And they'll teach you what a minute of angle is and how to adjust your scope or your sights and how many clicks you need and so on and so forth. So in this example, this is where I started shooting at the beginning of the event. You see that's off the square. And I moved that over. I think this is the next one we shot. So you take that information, and I won't go over the details, but basically they help you sight in your rifle and tell you how to, get it shooting where you want it to. Okay, that's that. This is an Appleseed qualification test, and you'll do anywhere from 3 to 5, sometimes 6 of these over a 2-day event.
I think I shot at least that many. And you do have the option of not shooting some of them on the second day. Uh, it's most of us were trying to chase that marksmanship badge and
Right.
also apply the skills. But
Right. Yeah, most of the instruction happens on day one. I think day two is more fun because you do a lot more shooting and you shoot at targets. Day one is all about how things work, you know, how to shoot, how to handle your rifle, and, you know, going through the different positions. But so this qualification test, this first one here, and to give an idea, again, this is at 25 yards. So, you know, that's, I don't know, average size hand, whatever. And then they get smaller. And this one, this little guy here is, it might be, what, 2 inches across?
yeah,
So it gets a little small at 25 yards. This first one, the course of fire, it's standing, 1 magazine, 10 rounds. You have 2 minutes. Okay? The second course of fire, stage 2, this position is standing to a sitting or kneeling position, and it requires a mag change. So one mag has 2 rounds, and the other mag has 8 rounds. And the reason is to get you proficient, one, in changing mags, and also discovering your natural point of aim, because that changes when you move the rifle and you put in a new magazine. So they're testing you with that.
yeah. And what that means is standing. You start the stage or the course of fire standing, then you get into the kneeling position. That's what that verbiage meant. Standing, kneeling. You kind of build your perch once you get to the ground, but you start standing.
Right. It's a transition stage. So, right, you start standing, magazine on the mat, and so your gun is unloaded. So you're standing, you drop down, insert, get in your shooting position, insert the magazine, rack the slide, safety off, and go. And by the way, you've got 55 seconds for this, 10 shots. Third course of fire, also a transition stage, standing to prone. Again, you start standing, gun unloaded. They give the command to fire. You drop into prone position, put the magazine in, ready your fire. Magazines are 2 and 8 again. And this one, 3 shots in the first one, 3 shots in the second one, and 4 shots in the third one. All right? 3, 3, 4. So there's a mag change involved. You drop, put your magazine in, shoot 2, change the magazine, shoot 1 more, another 3, and then 4. Okay? And then, and you've got 65 seconds for that. Stage 4, this is all prone, 1 magazine, 10 rounds, and you've got 5 minutes. But again, those are pretty small at 25 yards. And you need to take your time and apply what they teach. If you could see that one, did okay there. But what they teach is the natural point of aim, which is the definition they use is where your shot will land when your body is at rest. So they teach you how to get into a position and how to fire, squeezing the trigger, the breath, the focus, all that. But it can be replicated. So that the idea is if you shoot, you take a breath and you see the target move in your sights. And then when you hold your breath again, at the bottom of your breath, your sight should be on the target again without doing anything. That's your natural point of aim. And it works. It's an effective method. And again, this is not bench shooting. This is just you and your sling and using your body to brace yourself. Okay. So use of a sling. Can I go into that, Scott?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I'll sure nobody's walking by outside. So the first use of the sling is called the hasty sling. Attached in the front and the back. Okay. Put your arm through as high up as it can go. Bring it around. So it looks like that. And you'll see that it's tense, right? It's snug but not tight. Across the top of my hand is loose on the stock. This is a very stable position. And it can sit there without the use of my firing hand. Okay, that's the idea. Very stable. Use this for the standing position. Okay. The other use of the sling, it unclips from the bottom. See that clip? It just comes right off the swivel. And then you push it through the clasp, like so, making a loop. Make it bigger, 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 because this is going to go around your bicep. Okay. Flip this around. Sorry, hard to do with the camera.
Yeah, and I will say, as Mike is doing that, do buy the recommended sling. It's a cheap military surplus sling. They ran them on M1 carbines. They ran them on the M16s, and later in the war on the Garand. I didn't have one, and I should have paid attention and purchased one prior to the event. I used this, which is just kind of a sling it over your shoulder sling, which allowed me to get into the hasty position quite comfortably, but I couldn't practice at all the loop that Mike's talking about because my sling isn't set up to do it.
Yeah, and this the sling is it's cheap. They have it for sale on the website, and there's other sites, online. GI issue, quick detach sling, cheap and effective. Don't spend more. Okay, you see here, it's around my bicep, and the clip is right here, or the clasp rather, and I kind of can cinch it tight up around my upper bicep, and this way, again. Come around over the top, grasping the rifle. Again, smooth over the top of my hand, snug but not tight. And this is used in prone. Now, you'll need a bit of an adjustment because what works for a hasty sling, which is what I did before, and a loop sling, the length needs to be a little bit different. Then we'll show you how to adjust it. So, I will show. There's a shooting mat behind me. Again, this is like the Taj Mahal of mats here. I got this at Cabela's. Don't get anything fancy though, because you might be in the mud. It might be wet, dewy. You're at the range, full of lead dust. Don't get anything fancy. Midway has mats. Cabela's has mats. You can use an old carpet remnant. You could use a cardboard refrigerator box. It doesn't matter. But you will want a mat. Okay. Oh, one thing about Appleseed, you're going to be going up and down a lot. Standing, prone, standing, sitting, sitting, prone. You're probably going to be pretty tired after the first day. And whether you realize it or not, you're going to be going through a lot of water. And so hydrate well. And it's going to be a long day. And you're going to be sore after the first day. Lots of up and down. Okay? So I'll get in the sitting position, Scott, and then prone, just to show?
Sure, yeah. So,
all right.
Yeah, they may not know what those terms mean in this context.
Well, first is kneeling. So just what it sounds like so. Hand loose. Your hand is just a platform, basically. All right. Sitting. And they'll teach you how exactly to do all of this. All right. And shooting side leg up, nice and high, slightly angled towards the target, and then loop platform for the hand. Again, the strap is snug. This is a very stable platform. Looking through the sights, it's really not moving much. And then when you get down into a shooting position, it's not moving at all. So that is the use of a sling.
Yeah, I've been shooting many years, and I have many guns with slings. I had never been taught how to properly use it. And that information is worth the price of admission in and of itself, because the sling, I never realized how important the sling is. It gives you more points of contact to your body.
Yeah. And again, yes, it's only at 25 yards, but those targets are scaled. This one, for example, and they get smaller. And I don't know if you could see, the first one is simulated at 100 yards, 200, 300, and then 400 yards, that last little guy. And it's my fingertip for comparison. It's not terribly big. You know, I'm amazed how effective you can be with an off the rack 10-22, not being a lifelong shooter and just using nothing special. So I know some of you out there might have a $2,000 10-22 that you modified. I'm not sure. You don't really need that for this. I'm sure it shoots very well, but yeah.
Paul.
And I would also just like to say that this class is of value to longtime shooters as well as new people. You will learn something, unless you're a match grade center fire rifle shooter. But most people, I think, can leave this event with a better understanding and more knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Scott, should I show one of the transition?
Sure.
Okay. To give you an idea of the kind of things that you do. So, see, this is a transition to prone, stage 3. Loaded, would be loaded, but this is unloaded. Magazine on the mat. And you start off with your gun in a safe position. Safety on, bolt open. Okay. So you're ready to command. And when they tell you to fire, you've got 65 seconds for those 3 targets. So simulated fire, take it down. We're ready. So that's an example of what you do. And time is kind of the essence. It helps to practice again, knowing how to get your magazine in, how to get your magazine released, because 10-22s can be kind of fiddly. They don't have the easiest magazine release or bolt catch mechanism in the world. So,
but that can be mitigated. You can buy aftermarket mag releases that extend it down to allow you to get to it faster. If you look at my rifle, right here is where you just move your finger forward and push it, and it will drop the magazine out. But on the standard 10-22, it's flush with the surface, and you have to press your thumb down into it. So a lot of people upgrade this piece when they first get a 10-22.
Yeah, worth doing, because it's a fiddly little thing, I found. So I guess that's it.
Yeah, there's Mike just did a great explanation of what the shooting and gun handling is like. You will get a lunch break, and you'll all kind of huddle up together, and that's where you start hearing the stories about the history of the early days of the revolution. I would suggest you bring a lunch and some beverages, and probably a camp chair, folding chair, because you will be using it during lunch.
Yeah, and wear comfortable clothing. And it really does get hopping. There's not a lot of downtime. In fact, I don't think there's really any downtime.
Not really.
Except for the lunch. And that's part of the fun, is, you really get moving. And some of the time stages, it's hopping right along. It's, it's a kick. But again, anybody could do this. I've got, I've got slip discs, osteoarthritis, the works. I couldn't actually get in the ideal shooting position because my shoulders just doesn't do that anymore. That could be mitigated. You do the best you can. It's a matter of personal accomplishment, and it's a matter of learning. And I would say, as a matter of encouragement, if I can do this, with a cheap rifle and a cheap scope, you can too. So don't be intimidated at all.
Yeah, and when like I said earlier, I have quite a bit of experience with firearms, and I thought I knew how to shoot until I went to Appleseed and was properly demonstrated the proper shooting positions and how to kind of build your shooting platform. And it paid dividends because last week I spent a lot of money to go down and train with Clint Smith at Thunder Ranch. And I don't know if you know who he is, but he doesn't suffer fools kindly. And so you don't want to be screwing around trying to, lay in the prone position while this guy's yelling at you. So I knew what my natural point of aim was. I knew what that meant. I had a lot of trigger time a couple of weeks before. The Appleseed really paid dividends.
Awesome.
Just last week.
Before we get to the questions, and I've seen a number of them slide by in the chat. Mike, you'd mentioned the safety regimen.
Yes.
Can you, just because we are who we are, can you tell us what it is?
Absolutely. So again, everything here is unloaded, but I will get it in a condition as if I was firing, okay? So whether you're standing, whether you're kneeling or sitting, whether you're prone, the procedure is magazine out, bolt back, safety on, rifle down. I'm sorry, before rifle down, chamber flag in, and then rifle down, step away. So every single time, that's what it is. Magazine out, bolt back, safety on, chamber flag in, rifle down, step away.
And they will check your gun every time. There's somebody right there. And a couple of times I hadn't set my safety, and you get this sort of disapproving look from your old uncle. You're like, oh gosh, I know better than that. I think they take a certain amount of pride in busting you, but it is really safety is what that's all about.
Yeah, and they're really good. And after every single time there's live fire, there's a ceasefire, rifles are made safe, and every single one is checked every single time. And that's what they look for there. The magazine out, the safety on, chamber flag in, the bolt open. So, it made me feel very, very comfortable. And anybody who's reticent around firearms or other shooters, you can be sure that they take safety extremely seriously. And that's just making the rifle safe. They also go over general safety rules. So muzzle down range, finger off the trigger, make sure the holes around you are also being safe, etc.
Oh yeah, one important detail I don't think that either Mike or myself mentioned is you're going to need something to case your rifle, whether it's a rifle bag, one of the plastic like Plano boxes, because they don't want you just walking over to your car, grab your rifle out in the open and walk down, and set up your rifle. You're going to want to do all of that on the mat with your rifle case.
Right. Good point.
Questions, guys?
There are a bunch of questions. Some of them are equipment, some of them are more generic.
Great.
Yeah, I've been trying to keep up with them, but there's a lot.
Yes, there are.
I did see one float by about knee pads. Knee pads are not necessary. as long as you have a shooting mat. Looks like the cats did something to mine. There it is back there. A padded shooting mat really helps because, yeah, you're dropping down a lot. So I don't think knee pads are necessary. I've got some Carhartt work pants that have integrated knee pads. If you have something like that, great. But separate ones, I don't think it's necessary.
Yeah.
As long as you have a padded mat.
Yeah, if you have orthopedic problems and need it, by all means, bring it. Knee brace, knee pads, even elbow pads, because when you're in the prone position, your elbows will be down as well. So just, if you have them and want to use them, but most people don't.
Yeah.
We'll get the other equipment questions out of the way. Scott, what model / brand mag release extender did you get?
My gun came with it. This is a Thompson, not a Ruger 1022. So this gun came from the factory with the extended mag release. But Tandem Cross and Volkortsen sell upgraded mag releases. And I can show you maybe on another bench doctor session how to replace those parts if you want to get in there and rebuild it or change that kind of stuff.
Excellent. One of our other viewers just picked up a 1022 takedown with the fiber optic sights. The question is, should they switch to the tech sights or before they go to Appleseed, or stick with the fiber ones? Appleseed's the 17th/18th of this month.
Well, if you are comfortable with what you've got, no need to change. Run them. If they're fiber optics and they work for you, no point in changing them out. I personally wouldn't do it. I would go with what I know, unless I absolutely hated the dots.
There was a comment about a link for the Appleseed approved slings. We put it in the chat on both Discord and in Zoom, and we'll have it again in the Zoom chat here shortly. Anyone using a red dot that either of you saw when you were out at your Appleseed courses?
Yeah, the guy next to me was using one. His problem was, though, that at that small target at the very bottom, that row of tiny targets, your dot ends up covering the entire target. So all you see is a big red light. You can't really, I don't think you could shoot this very successfully with a red dot unless it had a tiny red dot.
Right, and I would add part of the value of this is learning how to use and adjust sights. And if you go in with a red dot, you're kind of defeating that purpose. And this is, while it's not target shooting, accuracy matters. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, a red dot is more useful for fast,
quick target acquisition. Yeah.
Acquisition, right. So, yeah. There are people out there who do that. I don't believe they're getting as much out of the program as they otherwise would.
Yeah.
Okay, last technical question. Since we're talking about 22s, should one expect to clean the rifle since putting a couple hundred rounds through the rifle, things might get dirty?
Personal choice. I cleaned mine just because, one, I like cleaning guns, and two, I like cleaning guns. You don't need to, unless your gun is really filthy or starting to malfunction, in which case then I would tear it down and lubricate everything and put it back together. But there's no need to on the Saturday to the Sunday.
Yeah, I would say, and I hate cleaning guns. I would say there's benefit to it. You do shoot a lot. And at least mine in particular begins to malfunction. And there's nothing more frustrating than trying to get through your qualification test, and because it's timed and seconds are ticking by and you're fumbling, you lose by missing a shot, you lose time, trying to shove a new magazine in there. I think it's good practice. Make sure it's clean going in, and give it even just a basic cleaning on before day 2 when you get home. Yeah,
you risk if you have like with me, I have this 3x9 scope on the top of mine, and to break this thing down and clean it and lubricate it, there's a small risk of knocking this thing out of zero. If it were to fall over, drop it on the bench, something hits it, you can change your zero, and that would really suck to show up day 2 with a rifle that can't hit what you're aiming at.
Not everybody takes the gun down to the bolts, Scott, when they clean it.
I know. I'm a nerd.
How many magazines do you recommend bringing?
Oh, great question. As many as you have. You don't need. I think. What is it, Mike? Is there one stage where we used 3 mags? 2 transition. I don't remember.
Not really. At least the way they ran ours, you never use more than 2, but it's handy to have extras in case one starts malfunctioning, or if you have, if you have a malfunction, dump the old mag, pop a new one in, so that you still have a chance at shooting the same number of shots that you need. So
Ed's getting him. Oh, sorry, Mike.
No, I'm sorry. So I'd say bring spares. 4.
Yeah.
Don't ask it, Kyle. Make him wait.
Make
I
him
saw
wait.
somebody.
Yep.
Somebody asked about tube-fed guns.
Oh, you blew it.
I saw it. The difference there is, of course, if you own one, you know how kind of odd they are to reload, and you can't just carry magazines preloaded to 10 rounds. So, but I got a tip for you, which is to take a drinking straw, that you would use for a soda, and plug one in, and then load it with 10 rounds. And that way, and just load up a bunch of them. You don't need anything fancy. Just show up with, say, 10 straws with 10 rounds in each, and then you can open your the magazine or the tube, drop them in, and you can do a fairly quick, quote unquote, mag change doing it that way.
I'd like to point out, since I also took Appleseed, that's very instructor specific. We had someone show up with a tube-fed gun, and the instructor went, "Nope," and a different student lent him a firearm.
Oh, wow.
In order for him to take the course.
Yeah, the reason I think that some instructors wouldn't like them is because how you orient the barrel while you're loading it. You're no longer pointing it downrange and into the berm, so you're going to have to tilt it up and blah blah blah. And I think that makes a lot of RSOs nervous.
Yep, that was some specific course questions for both of you. What was the ratio for instructor to shooter?
I think there were at least 6 of them.
Yeah.
And
There were
were
about
probably
6, and I think there were 18 participants.
And you will get some one-on-one time with them. They'll come by and you can ask them a question. I had one guy spotting for me just for the fun of it. But you will have access to the people that you need access to should you have a question or a problem.
Yeah. And I
If
will
your
say
first date,
I'm sorry, there's a slight variation. So depending, this is a nationwide program. So, there's going to be a little variation, regional and depending on where you go and how big the class size is and stuff like that. So
Dave just asked one more technical question. Open sights versus aperture. Open sights are perfectly fine, right? The standard notch and post.
Yeah. It's post and groove or whatever you want to call it. It's perfectly adequate. And if you're comfortable with that, don't put tech sights on just because we say they're really cool. If your sights work for you, run them. Because if you swap to the tech sights, now you've got to go zero the gun again. So they're not required is what I'm getting at.
Right.
If your first day is lousy shooting wise, is it worth going the second day?
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because any skill is muscle memory and fixing bad habits. And so I shot a whole bunch on Sunday. Mike didn't shoot as many AQTs as I did, but Mike had already achieved the highest level, and I was still chasing it, and I still am.
I will say something about getting discouraged. This here is my qualification test. When I got the distinguished score, I want to point out the very first stage, standing. See that hole right there? That was my 3rd shot. That's 5 points. All right. That was, the first stage, third shot of the whole darn thing. And, but it came out pretty well. I got a 240 on this one. So, things can happen. Relax. Don't worry about it. As long as you take something away from it, it doesn't matter how lousy, your day is. Everybody has days like that. Think about what you're taking away from it. Did you learn something? You have something to work on, practice, what's going off, maybe you can identify it. Your breathing was funky, whatever.
You'll get to the point with all of this instruction. You'll get to the point where you kind of configure, you find yourself correcting all of the stuff that you had struggled with. And the more that you can get there and shoot and reinforce those skills, shoot all day long. Like Mike said, it doesn't matter if you make marksman. That's a noble goal. And yeah, I plan to go back and try to do it, but it's not the sole reason you're there. You're there to become a better shooter with a rifle.
Yeah, you're there to learn. So, take something away from it. A lot of people, this one that we went to recently, that was my third Appleseed. So I think it's a hoot. I get to improve every single time I go. I learn something new every time I go. I remember things I'd forgotten. There are a lot of repeat folks there. Don't think, oh, gee, I didn't, I wasn't a superstar after this program. No, neither was I. And I'm still not. So take something valuable away from it to learn from and go back.
Yeah, you will like it. I promise you will enjoy yourself and you'll learn a lot.
The tagline question here for last one that I have is, how do you sign up for Appleseed events?
You just go out to the Appleseed website and then they have, you'll see the ways to navigate where to look them up. I think they're listed by state and then date.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy website to navigate. You find one in your area and you kind of follow the links and sign up for it. Now, I will say they have different programs. So the standard Appleseed event is what we did. They also have they have different things. They have known distance events where you shoot out to 600 yards. They've got some pistol events in different regions depending on state. So the standard event is 2-day, and that's what we did, and it says on there too. And going back to the getting discouraged after the first day, that's a long day, and they throw a lot of stuff at you, and forgive yourself for being tired and a little off at the end of the day. All right. I went home pretty tuckered out every single one I've been to.
I did. That Saturday night, I slept well.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring up a quick point. Shooting this AQT, this series of strings, you'll do it many, many times, and they are timed. But it's quite easy to get your shots off under that time. Don't get freaked out about it when you hear something like 55 seconds. It's actually an eternity to shoot off the prescribed number of shots. You get plenty of time, so don't get kind of up in your head about trying to go fast. Nobody ever shot good, or very few people could shoot fast and accurately.
Yeah, and that's so true. And in fact, they speak to that a little bit, in the when they're teaching you how to fire a rifle. And in terms of breathing, you're shooting at the bottom of your breath. Relaxed breathing, it takes you about 3 seconds to cycle your breath, and that could be a shot every single time you take a breath. Hold for a brief pause, 3-4 seconds, per shot, really, if you're doing it, if you're dialed in. So,
What's the bottom of your breath mean?
Breathe in, let it out, hold.
Basically the exhale. At the end of the exhale. I'm really, really thankful I took that class. Like I said, I've been doing this for many, many years, but learning how to use that stupid sling was such an epiphany. And I practice it now, just building a comfortable shooting position, using all the stuff I learned there. And like I said, I've already been able to apply the knowledge just a couple of weeks later.
Yeah.
Kyle, we got anything else?
Just pointing out that the website is appleseedinfo.org, and there's an events link right at the top that you can click on where you can sort by state, or click by state, I should say.
Excellent.
I think it's an amazing value for the money. Where else are you going to get 2 days of intensive training for? Well, I don't even remember how much it cost. $75, something like that.
I think it was 60.
60.
60.
Yeah,
Plus a $10 one-time range fee. $70. You get a team. They give you targets.
Hell, you can't even get your toilet unclogged for that much money.
Yeah.
It is really
And we are in no way affiliated with the Appleseed organization. So
no, we are not. But I don't know any other sport where you can get 2 days of really fine instruction for $60.
Yep.
sounds fun. So Kyle, moderators, we got any more questions? Is that it?
I think that's
There
it.
is nothing else.
Outstanding. Well, once again, gentlemen, thank you so much for walking us through this. Last 2 weeks have been taking apart rifles that you might be able to use in this event, the 1022 and the Marlin Model 60. Although apparently some RSOs are a bit of a jerk about the Model 60 and its tube. Go out there and get some shooting done, gentlemen, and Michael especially. Thank you for sharing your wisdom, even though you don't think it was wisdom. And if everybody hasn't quite realized this by now, Mr. Ross is humble like you read about. So he is an outstanding shot with a pistol and a rifle, and earned that badge probably time and time again, although he's only got the one to show for it. If you're followers of our Mantis group, for instance, you might see his name pop up now and then with some ludicrously high scores on his handling of said pistols. So keep that in mind. He's lying to you when he says he's not that good.
It's not a competition, but he kicked my butt.
Yeah.
And I've been on a rifle since I was a kid, and I got smoked.
He is lying to you. And Scott, again, thank you for running the show again tonight.